Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Friday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner and today is February 17th, 2017. Well into winter at this point. So in just a moment we're going to be on our way to going over your information for your public, marine, and aviation forecast. But don't forget, you can always go online and visit us at weather.gov/Alaska and check out our Facebook and Twitter and YouTube videos that are out there. You can find them all through the webpage. We're going to start off your evening with a look at the advisories across the region. First one we're going to look at is this one right here. This is going to be for a wind advisory with winds gusting in this area between 25 to 40 miles per hour out of the south direction, with gusts possible up to 55 miles per hour. And this is primarily for the passes along the Alaska Range. Now looking out towards the west, this is the Kuskokwim Delta from Bethel over towards the coast. They're going to be seeing some northerly flow tonight, picking up in speeds about 20 to 35 miles per hour. And then just inland towards Bethel, the winds might be a little bit lighter. However, very cold temperatures are going to be filtering through the area. So temperatures will be ranging 30 to 40 below zero tonight. So be careful as the winds gust there out of the north. We'll take a look at the weather systems across the satellite picture. We're looking across the western areas. We're not going to see a whole lot of motion up here. Primarily have a low pressure system that's spinning and moving towards the Seward Peninsula there, the Bering Strait, with ridging moving towards the western areas of the Bering. So putting this into motion, you can see a little bit of pull around this low pressure system across the western areas of the state and the counterclockwise circulation there across the western areas of the Bering. Now more significant weather is being impacted across the south central areas as we have a weak low pressure system bring a warmer air mass across the Canadian-Alaska border here and wrapping back around towards south central. Across the southeastern areas, they're just on the very cusp of the system, so getting some showers advecting into that area. Putting this into motion, you can see it's primarily a northerly direction, but we do have some moisture bringing some shower activity across all of the Gulf locations and just inland. Currently, we have plenty of snow being driven by this system. You can see this plume of moisture, and that's because it's a little bit of a warmer air mass being pulled into the state. Now here's the setup at the surface. Low pressure is situated just across the northern Kenai into the Anchorage Bowl area, with a front extending towards the north where that moisture was pulling towards, and another low pressure system in the upper levels out to the west, but the surface primarily just have a trough along the northwest extending back towards a low pressure system there in the northern Cook Inlet. So we have some snow activity across the frontal zone stretching into the northern areas of the Kenai, produced about 7 to 10 inches of snow for Seward through the afternoon today, and just light shower activity developing across much of south central, mainly from just along the Prince William Sound area back towards the Chugach area, Anchorage Bowl, and just creeping towards the north. primarily staying out of much of the Copper River Basin at this time. We do have some light rain showers across the Gulf. Accumulations from this system for the overnight hours will be between 1 to 2 inches, and that's going to be stretching all the way up to the AKwx Valley as this moisture is pulled to the north. Not much change in this system overnight, with the low pressure staying in the southern area of the state. And weak disturbances rotating around the upper level system will continue the snow activity all the way through the Panhandle, with those warmish temperatures across the Gulf possibly bringing some light mix of rain and snow as you head towards the very southern areas of the Panhandle. So primarily just snow, and as we head into Saturday morning, a little bit better chance for those conditions to be warmer across the southeast, so mix of rain and snow for tomorrow. As you look to the north and northwestern areas, a little bit tighter gradient in this region, so a stronger east to northeast flow becoming all north across the Bering Strait. This flow across the northern tier of the state is going to range between 15 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour, with those stronger gusts coming down towards the Kuskokwim Delta. This ridge across the western areas of the Bering is pushing a colder air mass, and that is filtering all through the Bering down towards the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutian Chain. So we have some light snow shower activity as weak waves rotate from the low pressure system in the upper levels, just bringing a little bit of light snow showers primarily across the Bering. Now, as we head into your day on Saturday, there is a weak warm frontal system, not warm enough to produce rain, but we'll see some snow showers across the western areas of the Bering, including Shemya. Weak low pressure will also be continuing across the eastern area of the Aleutians, with some patchy fog along the Kotzebue Sound and south as low pressure kind of spins out in that area. And then for the south central areas, we'll still see some light snow activity through the morning. However, as we go into the afternoon hours, that front is going to be breaking up. The low pressure system will dissipate the precipitation around it. We will see some light snow shower activity as this low pressure in the northwest will bring some weak waves ahead of it and keep that shower activity going through the Gulf and the southeast. Now across the northern areas, we'll see snow along the eastern Beaufort seacoast, back through the Kotzebue Sound, the Bering Strait, through the day as the low pressure system begins to spin up and get a little bit more energy. It's going to bring that energy and push the colder air mass, and as you head into your Sunday, this cold trend is going to push from the western areas of the state in towards the central interior and the south central locations. So look for a cooling trend as you head into your weekend, and this cold front will be passing through Kodiak Island by late Sunday. However, across the southeast, they'll get a little bit of a break from the shower activity, perhaps some break in the clouds as the low pressure system sits towards the west, and they get a little bit of a weak high pressure gradient and low pressure getting an inverted trough here and creating some offshore flow. So break in the shower activity for the southeast on Sunday. Across the northwestern areas of the state, cold temperatures will continue to filter in. Look for some breezier conditions along the frontal boundary here out of the north to northwest direction. Now across the western areas of the Bering, a tight gradient across here will bring in more of a southeasterly flow. Colder temperatures keeping things more snow during the day, and the overnight hours Sunday into Monday, look for this strong system producing gusts between 50 to 65 miles per hour during the Sunday night hours and bring a mix of rain and snow towards Shemya and the central Aleutians. Looking at your temperatures for today across the state, we did have a warm front pull from the Gulf, and warming across the Copper River Basin was most notable, with the Glen Allen Airport coming in with temperatures at 48 degrees earlier today. Mainly the temperatures were in the mid-30s across the northern Gulf, with those mid-30s across Kodiak Island as well, 36 there. And then across the southeast between 35 to 40 degrees, bring that rain and snow shower mix. These temperatures will probably persist into tomorrow. However, temperatures across the interior, you'll see modify a little bit closer to freezing. A little bit colder today with teens just across the Fairbanks area and on towards the southwestern areas of the state. Temperatures mainly in the mid-30s for the Anchorage Bowl and the Matanuska Valley and Susitna Valleys there, warming up this afternoon. Coldest temperatures were along the northern tier of the state, Brooks Range and north, were 15 to 25 below zero, with the coldest temperatures over at Point Lay at 34 below zero this afternoon. Now, the southwestern end of the state, a quick warming into the mid-20s for the Alaska Peninsula, but still single digits across the Kuskokwim Valley towards the Delta, dropping down below zero this afternoon. Colder temperatures filtering across much of the Bering, 10 to 14 degrees just across the Pribilof Islands with 30s, a little bit cooler out towards Shimia with a high near 28. So tonight's temperatures will be very similar to what we're seeing this afternoon, not much change in the system. However, we do have that colder system just across the western coastal areas, which is going to push the temperatures between 10 to 20 below zero, with the winds producing colder wind chills. Across South Central, mainly temperatures staying in the mid-20s, perhaps going down into the teens in areas where it might clear out as the system lifts to the north. However, we should mainly be in the 20s, thinking that system should stall a little bit longer. Across the southeast, temperatures there will be in the upper 20s to lower 30s, and the interior areas of the state will range between 10 below and 10 above as that warm air mass starts to pull north. Looking at your temperatures for tomorrow, moderating across the interior, 10 to 25 degrees. Across the southern tier of the state, anywhere from 30 to 35 degrees for the southeast. Areas also in the southeast getting up to near 40 as you head towards Annette. Across the north and western areas of the state, below zero, ranging between 10 to 20 below zero. Temperatures for the Bering ranging between 15 degrees and 25 degrees. As that colder air mass comes through the Alaska Peninsula, they will stay below freezing. Across the west, possibly popping up for the western Aleutians in the mid-30s as that warmer air mass approaches, likely be closer to 32. Now, the flying weather for tomorrow, low pressure across the western areas of the state will bring widespread IFR conditions until that system clears. Also expect periodic conditions IFR across the coast, improving later during the afternoon. Now for the southeast, also look for IFR in the morning with the light shower activity, and then improving during the afternoon hours for much of the areas across the southern tier of the state. However, the northwest will stay in widespread IFR and MVFR conditions, as well as much of the Bering as that next system moves in, and high pressure traps the moisture towards the surface. Now looking at your passes in more depth, we have Anaktuvik, which will be IFR all day tomorrow, and Anaktuvik, Adigan will also be MVFR. Looking at IFR, improving to VFR for Lake Clark and Merrill, and looking at rainy, IFR to MVFR, and windy will also be IFR tomorrow. All day conditions will go from IFR going to MVFR, and Mentasta will stay on the VFR side. Tenita Pass, expect them to be MVFR during the day, possibly improving. Portage will go IFR to at least MVFR, and Chilkoot and White Pass will go IFR, probably improving late day to VFR. Your freezing levels for tomorrow morning will skirt across the Aleutian chain and along the Gulf there, with the higher heights just to the south at this point. Looking at your icing tomorrow, really the focus is going to be around low pressure system from south central and to the north, but look for isolated conditions also across the southeast in the morning and across the central areas of the Aleutians. Now the jet stream, not a lot of strong flow, so we're going to be in a very stagnant system due to this very weak flow aloft. So closer to the surface at 9,000 feet, here's the ridge. Most of the flow is just going to prevent any systems from moving across the state as we head into the weekend. Strongest winds tomorrow at 3,000 feet will be around the low pressure system along the western areas of the state. Primarily a southerly flow. The system is fairly stacked with a surface low just a little bit further south than the 9,000 foot level. Look for weakish winds across the southeast and the eastern tier of the state, with the strongest wind shear possibilities across the western areas of the state. And we're looking at below 4,000 feet across the Brooks Range and below 3,000 feet across the northwestern areas of the state. Also look at conditions with low pressure system in the vicinity as the front pulls through. Could see some weak gusts there below 4,000 feet across the western areas of the Gulf. Okay, in just a moment, we're going to be back with your marine forecast.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. Thanks to Alaska Public Media for allowing us to bring you Hangar Flying. This evening, we are pleased to have David Karalunas back on Hangar Flying. David's the policy lead with the Federal Aviation Administration's Compliance Philosophy Focus Team, and we've been busy talking about their new compliance philosophy. Thank you, David, and welcome back.
Hi, Mary.
So when we left off last time, we were talking about the changes to remedial training and some clarification about different actions that might be taken against certificate holders. What are some of the changes that have come along with the policy for remedial training?
Well, for those of you that are familiar with remedial training from years ago, it's been something that we've used for a long time, but remedial training used to be considered part of administrative action. It was administered under our legal process, but was not quite legal enforcement. So not an adjudicated finding of violation, but we did require evidence that a violation had occurred in order for us to use remedial training. That is still the case, but the policy changes that occurred October 1st of 2015 allowed us to move remedial training under compliance action, and we can administer it without having to start an enforcement case. So that policy went into effect a year ago, October, and based on feedback that we received, we decided to expand the eligibility criteria. So all of general aviation folks not using a certificate commercially were eligible, but we've expanded that to include single pilot operators and folks involved in maintenance under a Part 145 repair station, and also operations under Part 135 if certain criteria were met. And it's a very small organization where there's no one suitable to do training within the company, or there's no approved training program for the company. Single pilot operators are in that category, no training program required for them. So we've greatly expanded it. It's administered by the FAST team folks, but the inspector investigating whatever the event was that led to the compliance action has to make an offer to the airman, and the airman has to accept the offer, and then they sit down with the FAST team and work on developing a training agreement, just like we used to do, and then that agreement is executed, and then the FAST team goes back to the investigating inspector, and the situation gets resolved as a compliance action.
So this new compliance philosophy has been in place for some time. Has it been used in Alaska?
It has been. I know I receive a lot of questions about the policy myself, and have done a lot of trainings with the flight standards inspectors in Alaska, and in fact it's been very successful.
Can you give us any examples?
Well, the one example that I wish I could share in great detail with everybody is so good that we're going to use it to develop training for our workforce, starting with our recurrent training for all ASIs around the country. But we had a fatal accident that both the pilot flying the aircraft and the organization that owned the airplane were both able to participate in compliance action. And that was a big challenge for us internally, because a lot of the more senior folks in flight standards, had that mindset, like we all did years ago, that because there was a fatality, we had to take an extreme action, an enforcement action of some kind. But in fact, the compliance philosophy focuses on the underlying behavior that led to the event rather than the severity of the outcome. And by focusing on that behavior, we can fix whatever caused the accident to happen and ensure that it doesn't happen again through training or whatever the right intervention is. So hopefully in the years to come, everybody will be able to see the training that we've developed out of this, but it is being used and used successfully.
Where would a pilot go to find out more information about this philosophy, and do you have any advice for them?
I do. We have a public website that's faa.gov/go/CP, and our key policies are there and references, and our brochure that you may see an inspector hand out to you at a interaction of any kind, but certainly when there's an investigation underway. There's a lot of good FAA articles that have been published and speeches given, but our safety briefing magazine from January, February 2016 has a editorial from FAA Administrator Michael Huerta and an article by Jeff Smith, one of my fellow team members on the Focus team, talking about compliance philosophy. And you can go to faa.gov and search for FAA Safety Briefing Magazine and find that. EAA and AOPA both have several articles that they've produced that you can go to their websites and search and find them. They both also have done webinars. EAA did a webinar at AirVenture in July, and AOPA did one, I think, a little earlier, and you can find those on their websites as well.
Great. Thank you so much for all your information, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mary. Glad to be here.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Hangar Flying, and we hope you've learned something about the FAA's new compliance philosophy and where to go for more information if you have questions. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back to the show, and now we're going to go on to your sea ice across the Bering. Looking at the ice edge, it's growing further to the south, and we're seeing about between 40 to 60 nautical miles just off the northern edge of the Pribilof Islands there. And you can see that it's grown all across the just north of the Pribilof Islands towards Bristol Bay is nearly all covered. And we're going to see that northerly flow continue to build the ice edge towards the south as we head through the weekend. Now onto the forecast for the southeast on Saturday, looking for some light flow across the inner channels, primarily north flow 10 to 15 knots. However, that could change out of the south for a few hours just during the day. Then we'll see that turn back out of the north. Across the outer channels, we will see a bit of a southerly flow there to the south and more an east flow as you head up towards Yakutat. And seas on this day across the inner channels will be around 2 feet and then ranging between 7 to 8 feet across the outer waters. On your Sunday, a little bit change of a wind direction there, primarily out of the north direction, but yet again on Sunday you could see a short turnaround to the south across the inner channels, mainly offshore flow, and seas on that day will be around 2 feet across the inner waters and 7 to 9 feet across the outer waters. Looking at the Gulf along the western areas of the state tomorrow, looking for light variable wind at 10 knots and between 10 to 20 knots across the Cook Inlet and south there towards the Shelikof Strait, the strongest around the Baranof Islands. And we'll see seas between 2 to 5 feet across the Gulf, with a little bit higher seas between 6 to 7 feet across the northern waters. Prince William Sound, the southern inlet areas around 2 feet, stronger winds across the area just to the west of Kodiak will produce higher seas between 3 to 5 feet. And then on your Sunday forecast, primarily a west to northwest flow across the area, lighter wind speeds to the north there, variable 10 knots, and then seas across the Cook Inlet down towards the Baranof Islands will be between 3 to 8 feet, and then Shelikof Strait a little bit lower there at 5 feet. The Gulf waters will see between 5 to 7 feet, and Prince William Sound will be a little bit lower seas at 2 feet. As we look at your Alaska Peninsula, a northerly flow across the area, winds between 10 to 20 knots, freezing spray just north of the peninsula, and then of course it's ice covered across Bristol Bay. Seas on this day will be between 4 to 5 feet across the Yakpen. And then on Sunday, look for that northerly flow continuing between 10 to 20, with seas on this day between 5 to 6 feet. Now looking at the Aleutians, more of a northeasterly flow becoming a southeasterly flow, northeast to southeast. Saying that backwards, mirror image, that's kind of gets challenging. now between 7 to 8 feet for your sea heights across the eastern chain. The western chain will be seeing a little bit higher seas between 7 to 9 feet. On your Sunday, a little bit change of a wind direction here. The flow will become more southerly across ahead of that next front that's coming up from the North Pacific. Seas will range between 5 to 6 feet across the eastern half of the Aleutian chain, with the higher seas 9 to 11 feet across the western areas of the chain. West Coast will see a little bit stronger wind flow, 20 to 25 knots across the area, with seas between 3 to 5 feet in ice-free waters. And on your Sunday forecast, a little bit lighter speeds out of the north to northwest. And across the north and northwest coast, we'll see stronger winds towards the Kotzebue Sound, Chukchi Sea area at 25 knots, 15 knots elsewhere, all out of the north and easterly direction. And on Sunday, we'll see a northerly flow continue, a little bit lighter speeds there towards Kotzebue Sound. Let's wrap up your forecast for tonight. We have low pressure that's sitting around South Central is going to pull some snow all the way up to the Koyukuk Valley. Snow totals will range between 1 to 2 inches from this system as it's weakening into Saturday. Some light snow shower activity and gusty winds across the north and west coast, with wind chills being very cold across the Kuskokwim Delta and gusty winds picking up across the Alaska Range and then tapering off on Saturday as this low pressure system begins to weaken. Expect some snow activity Saturday morning and then the diminishing activity during the afternoon. However, we will see some light snow and rain showers across the Gulf areas and also the southeast as we have weak low pressure circulating just across the northwest. Gustiest winds will be across the northwest coast for your Saturday, with the western areas under relatively light flow, but colder temperatures definitely moving into the south central region by Sunday. So expect these colder temperatures arriving on Saturday, so below normal temperatures for the western and central areas of the state. And the southeast will have a break in the snow and rain activity on your Sunday. So enjoy your week. It is a quiet weather pattern for Alaska. And tomorrow we'll be back with you again with Dave Percy.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.